either on a separate sheet of paper near the problems, on the back, whatever. If you did not get these questions correct, you should be fixing them so you don't make the same mistake for the test tomorrow/Friday if you don't finish. The test will be set up very similar to the quiz, except longer. You'll start off with the no calculator section. Once you finish that, then you can grab the calculator section. I'm starting with the calculator section, going through wise, so that should be the first page that's attached. And then the second page should be the no calculator section. So for the most part, we did good, we did fine for the solving multi-step, calculator and no calculator. There were some slight issues with multiplying, combining like terms, things like that. So here we should have distributed the -3. Some of you left it as 15/6, but then later simplified it, which is fine. And then you had choices here. You could combine like terms, start moving things. Most of you combine like terms first. And then started to move things. A lot of you added 7 to the other side, and then added 5 halves. So the 1/2 plus the 5 halves would have equaled 6 halves, which would have been just 3. Whether you put 6/2 and then simplified, or just put 3 was up to you. And then on the other side we got 18. Divided both sides by 3 to get 6. So the 4 points on that one were: did you distribute? Did you solve correctly, however you chose to solve? To get the correct x term and the correct final number before you divided to get that final answer. Questions on that one? I saw this happen a few times, so I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. If you move both of these terms over here or both of these terms over here, you're going to have 0 equals whatever that is. You still have to solve for it. Even though you get 0 equals, you still have to move one of the terms back. You still have to solve for x. Some of you weren't doing that, which changed the sign of your whatever. So be careful with that. Right, this one we needed to cross multiply. So whether you put the 7 and all of that on the right or the left did not matter. Distribute to everything and then start to move. Again, how you chose to do that was up to you. Many of us subtracted 7 and subtracted 64 to get n equals 6. So the 3 points were: did you distribute / cross multiply correctly? Did you do the rest of that work correctly? Did you get the correct answer? Questions on that? So the calculator portion for the multi-step was 7 points, and then we'll go back to the other one. I added the 2 totals together to get you your total score, which will be the same thing on the test. Okay. For the most part, we did fine for number 3, but number 4 we had issues. So we should have been isolating the absolute values, add 7 to both sides, which most of us did. Some of us divided by 1/3, some of us split it and multiplied. Either or did not matter. But remember, as you're isolating, you need to keep it in the absolute value. You cannot take it out until it has been isolated. So many of us did not write this step. but then you should be dropping the absolute value, setting it equal to a positive and negative version of negative 27. Some of us changed this sign and changed that, and we should not have done that. And then solve for x. And here's where some of us made this mistake. At this point, some of us just put 23 and negative 31 as our solution set. But the x is not by itself. You have to get it by itself first. So that the solution set would have been negative 23 and positive 31. So if you got the opposite, it's because you didn't divide by the negative 1, or you changed this to a plus, which changed your entire answer. So the 5 points on that, did you isolate correctly up until this point? Did you set up your two equations? Did you get the correct answers to put them in the correct solution sets? In the right order. Do you have any questions on that one? Number 4, start isolating. Many of us added 16, which was the correct first step. Some of us did not leave this in the absolute value. At this point, this can no longer be solved. It's isolated and it equals a negative, so this should have been no solution. But many of you kept solving. If you would have put those numbers back in, you would have saw that those numbers did not work.
Okay, so if it equals a negative number, it's a no solution?
Once it's isolated, yes. If it equals a negative, but there's still stuff outside of here, then it doesn't matter. Until it's isolated. Other questions on that one? So the 2 points were, did you isolate correctly? Did you get no solution? If you kept solving, you completely did not get that point at all. Alright, the word problems. Most of us got number 5. Some of us struggled with number 6. So important things in this, $10 per day plus $20 one-time registration fee. The total cost was $90. We have to write and solve the equation to find out how many days. So the very first thing you should have done was define your variable. Some of you got knocked off at that point because you didn't define your variable. Remember that we have to be specific. We can't just say days. I need to know what don't you know about the days. The number of. Most of us got the equation correct. 10b or x or whatever you called it plus 20 equals 90. Most of us got that. And then we're able to solve, subtract 20, divide by 10, so that d equals 7 days. Remember that we have to put labels behind these things. So the 4 points were, did you define your variable? Did you set up the correct equation? Did you solve it correctly? Did you get the correct answer? Questions on that? Right. I promise you that there is a perimeter question on the test if you want to know how to do this. Okay. The length is 5 inches more than 4 times the width. The perimeter is 90 inches. So you need to know that P equals 2L plus 2W. Some of you were putting P equals L plus W, but not putting the 2 in there. Or other things. I saw a bunch of things. You need this one, but you also need length's equation. I forgot to say it. So your length should have been 5 plus 4W. Some of you were using X, but we should not be using X in this case unless you called your width X. It gets confusing when you have 3 different variables and one of them isn't supposed to be there. So make sure you're consistent. If you have L and W, keep using L and W. Don't change it to X. Okay, so we have our length equation. We can put that in for L and 90. And then we can start to solve. So if you got this, most of you got the right answer. But if you did not get this as your equation, you did not get the correct answer. You ended up with different numbers.
Wait, so you have to know the perimeter, the formula for the perimeter?
Remember that it's adding up all the sides, or even if you did length plus width, that would still be okay. It would be a lot, but you would be writing this plus W plus W. It would be a longer thing, but even if you remember that you're adding up all the sides, that would come from something. You would eventually get the same answer as long as you do the math right. So combine like terms, start to solve this, get rid of 10. Divide both sides by 10. So that W equals 8, I think these are inches. Make sure you're putting your labels. Then we had to take 8, put it back in for L, and find what L was. So the width was 8 inches and the length was 37 inches. Some of you got that, some of you got different things because of your original equation. So if you don't set up that original equation correct, all of your work is going to be wrong. That one was 5 points. Did you set up the length equation correctly? Did you set up the perimeter with the length in it equation correctly? Did you solve correctly for both the width and the length? I think I already had a finger. And then did you get the width and the length correctly? Correct. Do we have any questions on that one? Sam, can you do me a favor and spin the blinds the other way? Until they're all over the place. Okay. Go on to the no calculator page. Alright, for this, most of us got 7. Make sure you're showing the work to both parts. Don't just divide one side but not the other. We have to do everything to both sides. So if we were getting y by itself, we had to get rid of ax first by subtracting. So we would have by equals c minus ax. And then to get y by itself, divide everything by c. So that y equals c minus ax all over. Minor things I saw with that, some of us subtracted the wrong thing first, by instead of ax, so we were solving for the wrong thing. So be careful that you know what you're supposed to be solving for. Those are like the main issues. The points there were, did you subtract and divide correctly to get the correct answer? Questions on that one? Now, 8 was the issue. Most of us multiplied m on both sides, but that wouldn't do anything except make this m squared and have an m on the side. B would still be in the denominator. But what we could have done instead is multiplied by b. At first, it's not going to seem like that helps any, but then we could divide by b.
Well, but it says you have to solve for b.
Right. We did it. So you can multiply and then get rid of something else, but multiplying by m would would not help get b by itself.
Why not?
It would make it m squared. B would still be in the denominator. Again, the 2 points there were, did you multiply and then divide to get the correct answer? Questions on that one? Most of us got this one correct. This one should have been infinitely many solutions. Even though it's not 0 equals 0, it's still a number equals the same number. So that would be infinitely many. No solutions would have to be there 2 different numbers. These only apply if you see x equals. If you don't see x equal whatever the number is, these don't apply. Right? And then most of us got this correct. We should have distributed. You get 8x plus 4 minus 2x equals 8 plus 4x, 20. Combine like terms. And then started to move. How you did that was up to you. Some of us subtracted 4x. And then subtracted 4 to get 2x equals 24. We get x equals 12. If this problem looks familiar, it was the first example we did on the Don't Call Me After Midnight notes. Questions on that one? The 5 points were, did you distribute correctly, combine the terms, solve, get both the 2 and the 24 to get the final answer. Right? And then whatever score you got here got added to the first one. Do we have any questions in general about, or specifically about the test tomorrow?
How many questions are there?
4 to 5 questions for each of them. Including the no calculator and calculator. Other questions? So for the rest of class, I'm going to give you choices. You should use this time wisely. If you are missing any delta math, you should be working on that. If you want to work through problems in the review, you should be working on that. I would say if you completed all the problems in the review and have done all of your delta math, then you can grab your phone. But if you've not done all of those things, you should be working on something.
Can you